Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to tackle a tiny four-letter word that can make a huge difference in how fluent and sophisticated you sound in English. And that word is very. So let's just dive right in with a question that might hit a little close to home for a lot of us. Seriously, take a second and think. How many times have you already used the word very today?
If you've ever said something like, the play was very fantastic, please don't worry, you are definitely not alone. It's a super common habit, but you're about to learn exactly why it's a mistake, and, way more importantly, how you can easily fix it.
Okay, so let's break down our first and most important rule for kicking this habit. So, what's actually wrong with very fantastic? Well, it's because the word fantastic is what we call an extreme adjective. The idea of very is already baked right into its meaning. I mean, fantastic literally means very good. So these adjectives, they're ungradable. They're already turned up to 11. So instead of using very, you can actually give these extreme adjectives even more power with more expressive adverbs. Think of it like a simple upgrade. You start with something basic, like very cold, then you level up to a stronger extreme adjective like freezing. And if you want to add some real punch, throw in a powerful adverb to make it absolutely freezing. It just sounds so much more dynamic, doesn't it? And look, you have so many great options to make your language more vivid. We're talking words like absolutely, really, truly, or one of my favorites, utterly. Just feel the difference between saying very scared and utterly terrified. See? That second one has some real power to it. Okay, let's move on and build on that, because there's actually another important type of adjective you need to know about to really get this down. Here you can really see the difference laid out. On the left, you've got your gradable adjectives like happy. Those are the ones you can use very with. In the middle, the extreme ones we just talked about. And then on the right, you see absolute adjectives. These guys describe all or nothing qualities. Right, with these absolute adjectives like perfect or impossible, you can't be a little bit perfect. It's either perfect or it's not. It's all or nothing. So again, we're going to avoid very and instead use intensifiers like simply, completely, or absolutely to get that emphasis across. Simply perfect. It just flows so much better. But here's where English gets a little tricky and kind of fun. Just when you think you've got the rule nailed down, boom, there's a twist, an exception to the rule. You will 100% hear native speakers use very with absolute adjectives, just like in this sentence. Oh dear, that plant looks very dead. And what's interesting here isn't just that the rule's being broken, but the specific, informal reason why. So here's the deal. This is an informal tool, usually for humor or emphasis. When you say a plant looks very dead, you're not really grading it. You're just highlighting how obviously true it is. It adds a bit of personality. But just be careful. This is for casual conversation, not for your next formal essay or exam, all right? Okay, so we've covered adjectives pretty well. Now let's see how this same kind of thinking applies to verbs and where very fits in, or maybe more accurately, where it doesn't. So a classic mistake is sticking very right before a verb. You just wouldn't say, I very like football. So what's the fix? Well, you can add very much after the object. I like football very much. Or, and this is what sounds most natural a lot of the time, just use a powerful alternative, like really. I really enjoy the show. Sounds perfect, right? And the same idea applies to past participles in passive sentences. We want to avoid using very directly. So instead of saying very known, the phrase you're looking for is well known. And instead of very appreciated, it's so much better to say very much appreciated. These are those tiny little tweaks that make a huge difference in how natural you sound. All right, let's tackle two last areas where very often gets misused, when we're comparing things or using superlatives. The rule here is wonderfully simple. You just never ever use very to intensify a comparative adjective. So it's not very lazier. Nope. Instead, you're going to want to use much or a lot. My cat is much lazier than my dog. It's a really clean and simple fix. Now, with superlatives, things get a little more nuanced. We're going to avoid very when we're using most, so no, the very most interesting. But we can and absolutely should use it for emphasis with words that end in est. Saying something is the very best, the very worst, or the very lowest. That's a really powerful way to add that final bit of emphasis. All right, that was a lot of information. So now let's see what you've learned with a quick little quiz to put it all into practice. You ready?
First one up, we've got a sentence with a verb. What's the best way to fix Maria very loves dogs?
If you said, Maria very much loves dogs, or even better, Maria really loves dogs, you are absolutely correct. Nicely done.
Okay, question number 2. This one's about an extreme adjective. Is the sentence, "It was very freezing yesterday," correct? Yes or no?
No, it is not correct. Since freezing is an extreme adjective, you either get rid of very completely or you upgrade it to a powerful adverb. So you could say, it was absolutely freezing yesterday. Perfect. You know, the whole point of this explainer is to see this not as losing a word, but as gaining a whole new vocabulary, a toolbox full of more precise, more powerful, and way more expressive tools. So my final question for you is this. What's one very that you're going to replace with a more powerful word today?